relating to the Larkin House, or sorry, the Larkin Corporation and the Darwin Martin House in Buffalo. So I will go into that further in the barn, but I know everybody kind of says, what the heck does Frank Lloyd Wright have to do with Inniskillin? But you will see the design component as you go through, and even the bases of the self-guided tour station are Frank Lloyd Wright design. And we were pleased to have Eric Lloyd Wright here, Frank Lloyd Wright's grandson, to address design components. And we had him stand beneath that wonderful stained glass and with the barn in the background. So we've had some fun with dear Frank Lloyd Wright. So talk about the history. But questions and why Inniskillin is so successful and the timing. The two co-founders, Donald Zeraldo and Carl Kaiser, had a very simple philosophy. And that philosophy was to produce premium wines from premium grapes grown in the Niagara Peninsula. The industry at that time, prior to 1975, when Inniskillin we got our license, the wineries that were here, basically 5 large commercial wineries, were based on the Labrusca grape varieties. So I think you can probably draw an analogy with New York State in terms of where we were when Donald and Carl started Inniskillin. But the big question was, or the big point with our major marketing strategy being education, was clearly people will not believe that you can produce premium wine if they do not believe you can grow the grapes. Okay, so the mindset with most people here or wherever we were presenting around the world was kind of like, can't grow premium grapes in Canada. So, yeah. So what I wanted to point out was this important map here. And on the map, you'll see that we're on the 43rd latitude. So the same positioning, basically, as northern California, but we're more southerly than the vineyards of Burgundy and Bordeaux. And as soon as we said that to people, there was this immediate body language change. And then they'd say, oh, okay, well, I guess you can grow the grapes, but you better have a good winemaker. Well, we did. We knew Carl Kaiser was a great winemaker, and of course, Bruce carrying on that tradition, as you'll see today. So this was probably the key piece of information then and now to help people place us in the realm of understanding that we can grow vinifera here. Okay? And then Donald Zeraldo's vision with the vineyard across the road, as Carl started out, and we were talking about this last night, Tom, is Carl started out making hybrid wines. Zeraldo planted in '74 vinifera to be able to supply Carl with what he needed. So there was always long-term vision. So Donald and Carl are viewed as the pioneers of the premium wine industry here and in the rest of Canada, and it was all about going against the odds. People said, you can't grow the grapes here, so how can you make premium wine? So they beat the odds and basically led the industry and still do, we still do now. But again, as the two co-founders, you'll hear their name come up in different aspects of the wine industry, and again, it's certainly, the accolades are all extremely well-deserved. So the other thing we were talking about last night was the moderating effect of the lake. So physically, where you are at Queen's Landing, you're right at Lake Ontario. Obviously, you followed up the Niagara River, and that's the U.S. just on the other side of the river. And you can see on the ridge there, that's the Niagara Escarpment. So we can only grow vinifera grapes between the lake and the escarpment. Above the escarpment, we cannot. It's just that much colder. Okay? So and again, this is in your book, but in the winter, because Lake Ontario is deep and does not freeze over, the moderating effect of the lake comes up, gets caught by the escarpment, and gives an airflow that allows us, again, to do the premium grapes. So you can see in those early years, without that geographical facts, people weren't going to believe you. So it doesn't matter where you grow grapes or where you make wine, you have to link to what you can grow in wine. So, and then the graph, and again, this is in the Icewine book, but the graph here, Carl got really tired of people telling him what he couldn't do, and so he made that graph himself probably in the mid-'80s, and of course when he did it, which is us in the red, it showed those deep temperatures in the winter. Carl was from Austria, so therefore the Icewine was kind of a natural once he saw those temperatures, and of course that magical grape that we're just going to go out and see now. Okay, so that where we're standing is an old lake bed, it will make sense. So Lake Iroquois at one point went right up to the escarpment, so that was actually the edge of the the lake, and so all of the soil that we use or have here is clay or sandy loam. So everything here is under drained. which in the Okanagan, our other winery there, the region, everything is irrigated because it's much more arid. Okay, so we market under cool climate, which we'll get into much more with Bruce. And of course, I think everybody knows that cool climate means great acidities, and that is the key to why we're so successful with Icewine and why our table wines also stand out. Okay, so I just wanted to touch that have been deposited over here. You'll see that there's a fair amount of limestone as well. So all of those key components added that initial credibility we needed to be able to help people understand how can you grow grapes in Niagara. But usually the question was, Canada, forget it. So we loved people to challenge us, and again, I was saying at Vin Expo, we actually took this map, we had it all mounted, we took it to Vin Expo, and that was our only visual on the table, because we were nowhere until people understood that. And this was all Icewine grapes right here. So where you're standing was, and all the parking area, that was all Icewine. And we pulled them out and certainly kept some on the property. And the piazza here now is a greeting area. We utilize it right through the winter and the summer, whether it's barbecuing or you'll see people maybe even today sitting out there with a glass of wine. It's people are enjoying that, what I call the fifth thing to do at a winery, which is sit and enjoy the sense of place. You know you're going to shop and tour and taste and do all that, but I love watching people sitting in this piazza enjoying the vineyards, the countryside. And of course, what does it really do? It connects them to the fact that we are an agricultural community.